Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the latest edition of Football is Absolutely Stupid. Because last night it broke that Leicester City have won their appeal against the P&S FFP sanction, and it looks like, to all intents and purposes, they are going to avoid any punishment for the charge for a P&S breach. I think leading into the year 2023, the 3 years running into that. And I suspect if you are an honest Leicester City fan, you're sitting there this morning going, got away with that one. And I suspect if you are one of the people involved with writing the wording for the P&S rules, you're probably a little bit nervous this morning. And if you are the Premier League and probably the EFL as well, you should feel really blooming humiliated by this, because Leicester and their legal team have basically driven a bus, a tank, one of those massive cruise ships with loads of cinemas and restaurants on. Think of the biggest vehicle you can. They've driven it right through the middle of a massive loophole in the P&S rules. Now, look, I'm a football fan. I like watching footballers score goals and then cheering and enjoying myself. But over the years, increasingly on this YouTube channel, we have to talk about money and laws and spending controls. And it is what it is. And you kind of learn, I would say I've learned the basics, but I'm still a layman. I'm not a lawyer or an expert in this type of thing. Check out our good friend Kieran Maguire on The Price of Football, who I'm sure is going to be, as we speak, recording a great episode about this. My understanding here, and we talked about this a lot on the channel because Leicester are in the Championship and covering the Championship chapter and verse, weren't we? So, the story went that Leicester breached the Premier League's spending rules. All the numbers for that are out there. And there's going to be a lot of semantics in this, because there's breaching something and then there's being punished for something, and the laws being allowing to punish. But we'll get to that. And I think, again, it was to the year end 2023. Leicester were relegated down to the Championship and were charged with a P&S breach. And then throughout last season, we had a back and forth and a discussion as to whether Leicester were going to be punished and therefore receive a sanction, which is likely to be a points deduction in the EFL. Now, Leicester kind of played hardball, and it worked, fair play, and kind of dragged their feet and, basically went through last season with a pretty normal approach. Certainly we're allowed to have a pretty normal approach to spending. We've seen the EFL apply business plans and transfer embargoes and things of that nature to teams. Leicester didn't have any of that applied to them because they argued this jurisdiction rule, which I think most of us thought, well, that's absolutely bloody stupid. That's not got any legs. Here we are now, right? And Leicester's argument was, you cannot punish a team on Premier League grounds who are not in the Premier League, because the Premier League and the EFL are two different bodies. And that's the actual crux of this whole ridiculous shambles, basically, of the P&S and the not being able to apply what we think is an obvious breach and apply sanctions to it. So Leicester went through the Championship and obviously won the Championship without any EFL sanctions because they were out of jurisdiction, they argued. And they won that case at the end of last year as well. The case to the EFL of, you can't give us a soft embargo, you can't give us a business plan, because our breach took place in the Premier League. And most importantly, the charge is levied by the Premier League. We're in the EFL now. It's a different body. They got nothing to do with us. Sounds ridiculous, again, until last night when the appeals team, or whatever you call them, the independent team, argued, nope, all the laws say that is absolutely correct. So what me and a lot of other people thought is, well, okay, fine. If that's the case, then the teams Leicester were up against in the EFL last season can kind of kiss goodbye to Leicester having any sanctions. Leicester scored 97 points and won the title. Fine, done. But they're back in the Premier League now, and they will be under the jurisdiction of the Premier League. And I thought that the Premier League would now talk to Leicester and say, well, you breached, you couldn't be punished when you're in the EFL. We'll punish you now. No, absolutely not. So, Leicester have won their appeal on the basis, and this is my understanding, the minutiae is really important, but it's not important when we actually look at the big thing that the Premier League have basically written a load of laws that have a massive loophole in, and it hasn't stuck. But my understanding is there's two things that are important. The definition of being a member of the Premier League and the dates, A, of when accounts are published and when a charge is made, and B, when transfer of shares to not be a member of the Premier League and become a member of the EFL take place. So what Leicester have successfully argued is that, and again, I'm not great with this, their financial accounting year ended and the charge was made and the membership of the Premier League was already rescinded. Therefore, at the point the charge was made, Leicester weren't a member of the Premier League, therefore were out of jurisdiction, therefore no sanction can be applied. I've probably completely fudged that, but as you can see, it's early in the morning, there's no production, I'm off the cuff here, I've got a busy day, but I really felt I had to talk about this. So, let's not make this a my club, your club, whataboutery thing. My opinion is this is just absolutely wrong, okay? That if you're going to have P&S rules and people breach them by the numbers, which if you look at the losses Leicester did, they have to be enforceable and punishable. And because of a silly loophole, because of, frankly, the silly system we have in English football where the Premier League is a different body to the EFL, which causes absolute havoc with so many things. And in fact, the root of 90% of the problems in English football are due to it being two different bodies and self-interest on the Premier League side and the EFL, and them not being able to, let me do a David Brent, get their act together, talk to each other. That's caused the entire problem with the distribution, hasn't it? With money not filtering down and cliff edges and things of that nature. And it's caused this huge problem here. Because surely, and we'll get it now, they'll rewrite the laws, surely we have to have a system that says, if we're going to have P&S, it's a different conversation. A lot of you think P&S is stupid, and I don't know whether I have a good argument against that now. But if we're going to have it, it's got to be enforceable, for God's sake. And I know Everton fans, Forest fans, who else has been punished? Birmingham, who said points deduction? Sheffield United, Reading, loads of people have had points deductions, are all going to argue, hang on a minute, we got punished, there was no loophole for us to exploit. Well, there has been one for Leicester to exploit, and I suspect this will all be very hastily redrafted and rewritten. Whatever you say, and look, we're going to get club... This is not a Leicester issue, by the way. This is a stupidity, incompetence in bringing in laws and having loopholes for them not to be kind of enforceable. But we have to have a system where if you pass between the Premier League and the EFL, that sanctions are enforceable between the two. We absolutely have to have that. Because, and you can argue this, every team that's been relegated since these laws have been put in, every single team, and Leicester were the first to actually breach the spending rules and still get relegated in the Premier League. Every team, Sheffield United, Norwich, Watford, West Brom, Luton, Burnley, I've reeled off 6. I'm sure there's 18, 20, Swansea, Stoke, going back through the years. Every team if their lawyers had picked up on this, essentially could have breached P&S in the Premier League, knowing that if they got relegated, there would be no sanction, even if they immediately got promoted back to the Premier League. That, my friends, even the most dyed-in-the-wool, biased, emotional, partisan Leicester City fan, they've got away with it, fine. If they're the ones that have raised the flag and exposed the loophole, then maybe that's a good thing. But even the most dyed-in-the-wool Leicester fan must admit, come on, guys, sort it out. That is just not right. That is my take on Leicester City and the P&S FFP loophole that they've driven a P&O ferry cruise liner through the middle of. It's done now. It's probably not going to happen again. Leicester in some ways have been the lucky beneficiary of the loophole. And I don't think for 1 minute Leicester went, oh, in the middle of the Premier League, oh, we found this loophole, look. If we get relegated, I don't think that's happened for 1 minute. I think they've, gone down, been charged and got their lawyers to look at it. And one night, one of the lawyers has gone, hang on a minute, look at that date and look at that date. Let's run with this defence and see how it goes. And by God, it's worked. So, yeah, fair play to them, their lawyers. But deep down, regardless of your whataboutery, whichever team you support, whichever cause you're fighting for, the cause of football, surely, guys, that is not right. And we have to have a system where that loophole is removed. And P&S, FFP, is enforceable across the Premier League and the EFL. And we've got to sort out the dates. We've got to sort out the everything lining up. Probably real-time reporting, but I'm going off on a big rant about it now. Get your thoughts in. I know the comments are going to be a complete sewer, absolute dumpster fire of whataboutery, and people saying, oh, well, this and semantics and this and this. And look, have your view, free speech ahoy, but surely as football fans, I'm assuming everybody here supports one of the 92 teams. Surely as football fans, or even, excuse me, beyond and below into the National League, surely we can all agree that this type of incompetence and this type of loophole needs to be closed up. And given what this means, what this game means to people in their lives and the teams they support, we can't have situations like this. The Leicester loophole, go on, let it burn, get in the comments.